Nice. Beautiful. Beautiful.
I was just getting that.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, May 9th, 2016. Selectman Hebert, would you do the honors and lead us in the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we, tonight, our first order of business is organization, but I'd like to welcome Mr. Paul Glavy to the board. Congratulations on your win on Saturday, and Mr. Knox, congratulations on your win Saturday also. We're glad to have you back, and we're glad to have you on the board, Paul.
Welcome.
So, before we get into reorganization, I just want to say the last year has been great for the town of Littleton in my eyes. It's been a very busy year for us. I think the board has done what they have set out to do, is to try and keep the town character, taxes, and school systems and our finances in check, and I think we've accomplished that. So the board members and Mr. Ravella, who's no longer on the board, thank you all for your time. That being said, I would look for a nomination for chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. DeCoste. I mean, Mr. Herbert, I'm jumping. Boy, I go that one up. Want me to go, Joe?
There's a nomination for Selectman Hebert to be chair. All those in favor? Aye. You don't have to second. Congratulations, Ms. Hebert.
Thank you.
The ceremonial passing.
Thank you.
Let me just get this. You don't want to be associated with me. It's better.
Thank you, Chairman Carr. It's
Thank
been
you.
a wonderful year getting to watch and learn from you, taking me under your wing and really teaching me a lot about the ropes. So I agree, it was a wonderful year, and thank you.
Thank you.
Been lucky enough last year with Selectman Carr and the year before with Selectman Knox as chair. So hopefully I've been prepped quite well, and I'm excited to jump in and lead. So, all right, that being said, I'd look for a motion for a vice chair.
I'd make the motion to elect Chuck DeCoste as vice chair of the Board of Selectmen. Second.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And to replace Mr. Ravella, I'd look for a nomination for clerk.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Cash. Second.
Any other nominations?
You sure?
Seeing none, all those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, and we have our... Okay, so that being done, okay, we have a moment of silence thing here. Keith, how do I handle that one? Do we just do a quick moment of silence?
Oh, that was my bad. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Stand up, please stand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please be advised that Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker has ordered the United States flag and the Commonwealth flag to be lowered to half staff at all state buildings from sunrise until sunset tomorrow, Friday, April 29th, 2016, in order of Corporal Christopher J. Orlando, United States Marine Corps of Hingham, Mass., who died in the 2 helicopter crash off the north shore of Oahu, Hawaii on Thursday, January 14th, 2016. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, mail, Mr. Bergman.
Just
To quote the previous.
two items, Madam Chair. First, we have the schedule from the Veterans Agent for the Memorial Day Parade, which will be held on Monday, May 30th. And we
Kind of looks familiar. I don't think anybody
Yeah.
would be surprised. Starting at Donald's.
can't predict what the weather's going to be, but next we have a communication from the, forwarded from the Board of Health requesting that we can continue to participate in the Central Mass Mosquito Control District. There is a form that we fill out every year. We already have our assessment on the cherry sheet each year. For this year, it's 47, or the coming year, it's $47,000, but we have routinely participated in that, and the payment is made through the assessment that the state takes from us at the time that they're also giving us aid. So we'll fill out the paperwork and, to continue the town's participation in that program. Next is an announcement of the Littleton Economic Development Self-Assessment Tool final report presentation, which will be 1 week from tonight. It'll be in this room on Monday, May 16th at 7:30 p.m. and it will be presented by Professor Barry Bluestone of Northeastern University's Dukakis Center. We had an exercise earlier with another representative from the Dukakis Center who went through the questionnaire in the EdSat tool, and now the final results will be reported from that. The report is also available at the town website. It's linked to the, you can find it linked at the homepage, but it will also be linked in the summary of tonight's meeting.
Exciting.
And will be, that will be an important tool in formulating the Economic Development Marketing Plan, which was one of the Selectmen's goals last year, and it will also inform the master plan update process, including the economic development component. Last item that I put in here is a report from the nominating committee of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, where for the last 2 years I've been nominated as the vice president, and this year I'm being nominated as the president of the Regional Planning Agency for the 101 cities and towns in metropolitan Boston. And I was thinking that if they took turns, that I guess each town, every 200 years would have their, or so, that it's, the typical term is a couple of years. So my immediate predecessor from the city of Salem is retiring from her day job. She's been president for 2 years. Before that, I think one of the more notable previous presidents is Secretary Jay Ash, who's now in charge of economic development, and who I've already reached out to make sure that he's aware that we'll be planning a ribbon cutting event in the next month or so for the Potpourri Group project, and there'll be some other things going on. So just wanted to share that information with the board.
Well, congratulations. You represent Littleton very well.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So, 6:40, probably the most fun topic we'll discuss tonight. Castle in the Trees Playground update. Come on down, guys. Yay.
So squeeze in. So we are here on behalf of Littleton Children's Fund tonight to thank the Board of Selectmen and the Littleton residents for giving $100,000 from the capital plan to help rebuild Castle in the Trees Playground. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for supporting Castle in the Trees.
Very well.
Castle in the Trees was built in 1991. The playground is still open and safe to play on, but it does need to be repaired.
In September, we will be working with Lovis and Associates to do a community build of the new playground. We need lots of volunteers to help build the new playground. For more information and to sign up to volunteer, go to www.castleinthetrees.org.
Wow.
And Wednesday night, this week, Bamboo in Westford is having a fundraiser for us. Lunch or dinner, dine-in, take-out, mention Castle in the Trees, and they'll donate 20%.
Outstanding.
Thank you again.
What a great
You
presentation.
guys are awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
See you in September.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Definitely. Great job, guys.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna 40 be my first meeting.
Big old thing.
Can we use the dragons on that?
Absolutely, right? Man, that was nice. That's nice to be thanked as well. You know? And thank you, Mr. Carr. I know you did a lot of work on that one, so thank you. All right. So now we have a lot of things to schedule. Okay, 3A, Selectmen's meeting schedule. I know Keith has.
Yeah, and I
at
should
the
mention,
Patriots.
you already have a meeting scheduled for May 23rd, for 2 weeks from tonight, so I didn't put that on as an additional one to add, but just in case you thought your next meeting was June, it's not. But,
And we have one in between for the Ed Set, not really a Selectman, but still.
Right, this follows the schedule that we had last summer of the, and avoids the holidays.
Except July 4th, I see you have.
Yeah,
a
and
set. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, you know, that I, in my first draft at this schedule, I had picked June 13th for a meeting, and then in checking saw that that is a major event, that kickoff event that the Master Plan Update Committee
Oh,
is holding, and so we ought not to meet that night, so pushed it back to the prior meeting.
Okay.
So it'll be 2 weeks between May 23rd and June 6th.
And then to note the joint meeting with FinCom on,
Yes, and also a joint meeting is proposed for Tuesday, June 7th, hosted by FinCom to jointly meet and discuss the most recent audit.
good thing I didn't buy those Florence and the Machine tickets for that night. All right. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Any questions on that one? Moving right along.
I'll make a motion here.
Or do we need to? Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's regular meetings for the dates indicated at 6:30 PM, room 103, Shattuck Street Building, June 6th and 20th, 2016, regular meetings, July 11 and 25, 2016, regular meetings, August 8 and 22, 2016, regular meetings, September 12 and 26, 2016, regular meetings. And further to schedule a joint meeting with the Finance Committee on Tuesday, June 7th, 2016, at 7 PM to review the fiscal year 2015 audit.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's an important part of this process. Good. Okay, try again for 3B, see how that goes. All right, preliminary goal setting, and this is the one, so we just need to schedule the date for setting our goals. And this one can take a long time, so we gotta figure out a date and also take the action to provide thoughts on what the goals might be, how we need to adjust them in between now and then, right?
Right, and I have included the list of goals for the fiscal year 2016, and I have also included an update on actions that have been taken in support of those goals over the last year. Typically, you've ended up setting either, a special meeting or a one-item agenda so that you can focus on the goal setting itself at a, you could do that at a regular meeting if the rest of the agenda were very light, but,
I might make a recommendation that we do it on the 20th, that way we can get that FinCom meeting on the 7th, in case there's anything that comes up as a result of that meeting. Is there anything that's We don't really have anything that's pending right now that's causing one meeting to be.
Yeah, you'll be doing appointments on both of those nights, but we could see what other, there's no public hearing scheduled right now. We could,
So that first night, we should probably take a look at our existing goals, status of them too, for that original. And then maybe carry some over that we didn't accomplish.
yeah, I've got attached to, you've got this, in the packet, you've got the list of goals, and then I put in
Where we are.
Yep.
an update on implementation of those goals, but typically it takes a few weeks for everyone to formulate their new goals, and if I can get the draft goals submitted in advance of the meeting, then I would prepare a matrix to try to put similar goals, lump them together and indicate who, which members are in favor of, or proposing which goals.
Gotcha.
I think though, for the first meeting, we should, get the ball rolling, as we've done in the past.
Got to brainstorm and
Yeah, just brainstorm, talk about
It
it.
has taken a couple of
Yeah.
meetings.
Conversational.
actually. We'd have a first meeting, and
Yeah.
then we'd get a little down the road, and then schedule a further meeting.
I agree with Chuck, though, the 20th, especially with the June 7th meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? I'll look for a motion.
I'm going to take care of this one, Jim. Mike.
Go ahead.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule a preliminary goal-setting exercise for FY 2017 on the agenda of the June 20th, 2016 meeting with a public hearing on the adoption of FY 2017 goals to be held at a subsequent meeting.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, reviewing regulation, selectmen's regulations and policies, similar thing, we have to pick a date, 6th or the 20th.
We revised the regulations a couple of years ago to actually say that that the annual review of the policies and procedures should occur at the first meeting in June. Whether it does or not is up to the board, but basically the idea was, since the codified record of all the prior votes of prior boards of selectmen are the policies that we follow, that the sitting board of selectmen ought to officially acknowledge them and to take.
Or change.
Or change them, right. I mean, the purpose is to do an annual review. So, because the policies are in place and are subject to your amending them at any time.
6 looks good to me, I don't know, first one,
I'm with you. Yeah.
what do you think, Joe?
With the date, the 6th, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's
full,
fine.
full document with the regulations is available online, is it?
It's available online, yes, and we can get you a hard copy as well.
Yeah, I
but-
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have my 3-ring binder, please don't give me a copy. I have mine.
Upon request.
Yeah,
we will make-
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
You can print on both pages, if that, both sides of the page, rather.
Yes, yeah.
All right,
So June
Motion?
6th?
think so?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the conduct, schedule the review of its conduct its annual review of Selectmen's regulations and policies for the board's regular meeting on June 6, 2016.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right, very good. June's shaping up. Another scheduling item, annual town board appointments, schedule interviews, appointments.
This is more in the way of a heads up that we will be, we've got a lot of appointments to make during the month of June, and that we have typically divided those up across the 2 regular meetings in June to conduct interviews. So what we've done in the past is to see which ones are completed and aren't waiting for any further applications, and do those first. And if there are any latecomers, we'll add those.
Keith, do you know offhand if that finance committee spot is the one I have, or is it the one that Greg has?
Well, it.
Gets confusing, I know. we
Yeah,
get a
the one that's
resignation.
posted in here, we we determined was in fact an appointment by the assessors, Light and Water.
Oh, okay.
So that, but the appointment, the board's appointment that you had
I'll be resigning from.
would be the 17th, 2017. Yeah, so that we'll edit this to say that it's a term that's
Yeah.
expiring 2017, so we could.
Well, I didn't resign yet, but I intend to within the next day or so.
So applications are due May 25th. We've got spots open on a bunch of different
I figured
committees.
as much. I should have figured as much.
Master plan
It's the
update's still
only-
open.
The only board.
Conflict.
Agricultural, Clean Lakes, Conservation Commission, Council on Aging, plenty of stuff, so get out there and, send in your applications by the 25th.
So for those that terms are expiring, I know we've run in this in the past, are we notifying those folks just to give them?
Already notified.
Everyone's notified, all the
Fantastic.
Jen's right on top of it, that all the, reaching out to all of the committees as well to, and as we
Way to
get
go,
the,
Jen.
as we get the names in, we're getting applications in, and then we'll give those committees the opportunity to give us their recommendations.
Nice.
Per your policy.
Nice.
Very good. Any other questions, discussion? Or motion?
Are we on June 6th or the 20th?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
It'll be both nights.
Get to split
Both
them
nights.
Yeah,
across.
we'll need to divide, there'll be so many, we'll need to divide them up between 2 nights.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule interviews and appointments for its annual town board appointments process for June 6th and June 20, 2016.
So moved in, seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. We've got our schedule set for the near term. All right, 4, public input. Do we have any input from the public? Okay, Chief, there, sorry, go for it.
Darrell Baker, Gristmill Road. I would just respectfully ask if the committee, this new committee, could consider posting their packet, not just the agenda, onto the website so that people can follow along a little easier to the meetings, particularly when you have complex items that, like the financial update with the memory spreadsheets and the other pieces there. It'd be much easier for us sitting in the audience to scroll along instead of watching you flip pages up there. Thank
This
you.
committee, the Board of
Yes.
Selectmen?
The Selectmen.
So what are our restrictions around that? We can take it offline too,
I'd
but
say if you could take it up as if you want to change your
Policies.
policy, when you review your policy, that, as they used to say, of the $6 million man, we have the technology.
We can build it.
thank you.
We will take it under advisement, I guess, right?
Chief?
Just wanted to notify the board that on Thursday and Friday this week, the assessors from from the Accreditation Commission will be in to do our accreditation certification, which will get us 2/3 of our way to a full accreditation, which my goal is to get that done for next spring. But this first step, Thursday, Friday, is a real important one. There's 3 assessors plus the person from the Accreditation Commission will be there for 2 full days, Thursday, Friday, so please don't call me on Thursday or Friday.
So Chief, is it just a review of folders or policy procedures? What do you do? Everything.
This is to certify that we're moving in the, we've already had our mock, which was done by 4 assessors. This is actually to get us our certification for that first, basically 2/3 of the process, which is to be quite honest, is the hardest part of the process, because it's the meat. And then, over the summer, you'll be getting more policies to review and things of that nature again for the second, or for the part 2, if you will.
They'll be reviewing 81 policies while they're here, station tour, and then going through and with, like, dispatch supervisor, with Detective Sergeant Fernandez about the evidence room, to actually see that they know what the policies are and that they're in. So,
Nice. Fun times.
Yeah, good luck.
And you know, Mr. Carr, what they actually do is look at your policy and then go check and make sure you're actually doing what your policy says. So that's on, whether it be petty cash, whether it be on how we take in things at the front desk, everything, so.
Nice.
I will, don't worry, we make up.
How'd you guys make on the mock?
It's no problems, actually, very, very well, so.
Nothing they need to work on, or?
I mean, there's a few changes, but that's what to be expected, but nothing large at all. And really, it was just keeping the paperwork updated so that the newest, monthly reports all show this month.
So they're like mandatory standards or non-mandatory standards? So,
Mandatory standards.
so 100% are mandatory, what do you have to have for non-mandatory? Is there a percentage, or you got 100% on them too?
No, there's
You're gonna meet all their standards.
all the standards.
Okay, so you're gonna meet them all?
Right, yeah, right now, like I said, there's 81 standards and policies that they're going through, and within the 81, there's little A, Bs, and Cs that all have to be met. And it all has to be met.
So the design and the build of the new station is in compliance, hopefully?
Yes, it is.
It's gonna help out a lot.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
it is. It makes a huge difference. And,
The mark, they said it was very nice to have, so.
Nice, nice.
Luck to you. Very good. Okay, any other public input? Board members, I'll start down this end. Selectman Knox.
I just want to thank all those people in town, my supporters, my family and friends that voted for me and put me back in office. I deeply appreciate it. I enjoy what I do here, that's why I do it. And once again, I want to thank you. I want to congratulate Mr. Glavy and his election. And I certainly want to thank Laura Beltrami, who ran a hard campaign, a clean campaign. She worked very hard, and I just want to congratulate her on the amount of work she put in. And I want to thank all the candidates that ran for all the things. People don't know what it takes out of you sometime in your last 2 or 3 weeks right before the election, the amount of time you actually spend, and the amount of time that certain friends around you actually put it in your behalf. But I just want to congratulate everyone that runs, that keeps the government going.
And I could echo what Joe said, and I would just add, I know thanks have been made by this board previously to this end, but I'd like to do it personally, and that taking the seats that had been held by Paul Lavella is a little bit humbling, because he set such a high standard, and look forward to continuing work that he was involved in as well.
Okay. Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I'll echo what Joe said too. I was fortunate enough to get elected to the Light and Water Commissioners, and look forward to working with those folks over the next 3 years also. And it is a lot of work, and the dedication that this group has for this town is tremendous. One quick story. I was at the Tigers Golf Tournament on Friday, our 16th annual. And right before the raffles, I had a woman come up to me and ask me, do the selectmen make $3,000 a year to be selectmen? And I said, in what town? She said, Littleton. And I said, no, not so much. It's a big goose egg. And they were taking back the fact that we don't get stipends. So we do this voluntary, and it's a lot of work. And I appreciate the business that we have to do, and the election process can be a pain. So congratulations to all the candidates. That being said, during the election process, I was inside talking to Town Clerk Diane Corey, and all her staff in there do a tremendous job. And they put in long hours, and there are different shifts, and folks that come in and volunteer. I asked the question, is this part of the senior work-off program, to be working as the elections? Yeah, and I don't know if it is. Is that something we can add to the senior work-off program?
And with the department head's permission.
Yeah, so I think if we could just reach out to them, maybe, Keith, to ask if, we can, the folks that are out there, they do a great job. I mean, and if we can be part of, we always have money left over for the senior work-off program. If we can include that, I think that'd be a great gesture for the folks that come out on that long Saturday, day and evening, so.
I
Look forward to
I do recall one of the issues that we've had in the past is the timing of when folks give their hours for the program, and towards the end of a fiscal year.
Right.
It's, if they've already used their hours.
Sure.
Then it becomes more difficult to have them offer, because they've already met their quota.
Gotcha.
But we can certainly work on the scheduling issue.
Yeah, and maybe we can get some different volunteers out there if it's part of the program too.
yeah.
So, my second issue is Representative Arserio contacted me probably 3 weeks ago during the state budget process, asked what type of equipment needs or needs for the town of Littleton. He was able to get $100,000 for Castle on the Trees, who we saw thanking us tonight. Rep. Arserio got $100,000 from the state also. I talked to the fire chief and the police chief about their needs. They put in a request. Rep. Arserio was able to get money for the police chief, his radios, 2-channel radios?
They're multi-frequency, it's UHF, VHF, and 800. Because right now, the fire department's on UHF, we're on VHF, so our guys can't talk to each other from our portables. This would be it's a triple band triple band radio.
Okay, so he was able to secure some money through the state budget process. What I'd like to ask the board is to, Mr. Bergman, develop a letter asking Senator Eldridge to, now that the budget's in the Senate, to support this request for $100,000 and have the entire board sign it, asking him to support this action that Rep. Arserio has done for the town. So that's all I have.
Excellent, sounds great. Let's make that happen. Mr.
All right,
Nichols?
I feel like a bit of a slacker, I didn't run for anything. But Jim stole a little bit of my thunder relative to the Tiger Open. There were a lot of folks that came forward, a lot of folks that donated, and a lot of people came out and golfed and had a really good time and raised some money for the football team. It's a big part of their success, and it's well appreciated, and it's a great moment of Littleton pride with everybody out there. It was well played. I did want to mention the election staff. They're kind of unsung heroes. You know, that Diane puts together a team that pulls off the elections without anybody noticing. I've had people that have commented saying that they've been in other communities and the process in Littleton is really tight and it's a smooth process. So kudos to Diane and her team. Also wanted to echo, I assumed that the Castle and Trees folks were going to mention something about Wednesday night at Bamboo. Just wanted to make sure that folks are aware of that. Maybe some folks weren't watching us when the kiddos were here. But Wednesday night at Bamboo, right in Westford, if you go in there and say that you're from Littleton and you order your meal, they'll give 20% of your total ticket to the Castle and Trees.
Or lunch too, I think.
It's all day, I'm sorry, yes, it's all day, that's right. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and it's just more of a, something I'd like to kind of get the ball rolling on, and Chief King and I have had a preliminary conversation about this, and we see it every time we turn on the news. We see something about opioid crisis. And I want us, along with the schools, along with the police, to find ways to raise awareness and not put blinders on and think that, well, we're Littleton, can't happen here. Unfortunately, I had a very close friend of mine whose son recently passed away, and he made it very public. His son's obituary stated that he died from heroin overdose because he feels as though everybody just kind of masks it and says died suddenly, or, you know, he wanted it to be front and center. He put it out on Facebook and used social media. So that I'm gonna make it part of my mission this year on the Board of Selectmen to get some balls rolling and see what we can do to raise awareness and maybe put some systems in place along with the chief, and the chief's got some stuff going with that. I'm almost done. The last thing I wanted to do is, as the representative of this board for the Alumni Field Renovation Committee, some folks have taken some initiative and set up a Facebook page on behalf of the committee, and there's some questions as to whether or not that should be done, that can be done. So I've been dealing with the AG's office, with the town clerk, and I think we can get ourselves into the weeds a little bit if we have a bunch of people from that committee or any board or commission that puts forward a Facebook page or any social media page or whatnot. If I think we need to start looking at some policies from where we sit to either set some pretty strict guidelines or to ban it, or I'm not exactly sure what we should do, but I think that it's been done very innocently. We do have our first meeting this Wednesday night. It is at 7:15 at the police station. It's an open meeting. A lot of folks aren't sure if it's an open meeting. It's been posted. Thank you, Jennifer. And welcome all to come out. It's probably not going to be a very sexy meeting. It's going to be organization and talking about what our mission and our charge is, and setting forth an agenda for moving forward. But that's all I have for tonight.
So Chuck, I got a question for you. In your conversations with the Attorney General's office, what was their opinion as far as? Local.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so local can manage it at that level.
Yep.
And make the decisions locally.
Okay.
So.
The main thing to avoid is
Quorum.
open meeting law violation, so that if you have a quorum, if you have a quorum of the members of the committee sharing their opinion of something outside of a meeting, including posting or serial posting at a website, then that's deliberation. So you could probably have it as a place to share information, and then it would be best not to engage, for the committee members themselves to engage, to engage in discussion there. If it's meant to be an opportunity to post information to share with folks, and then to have folks react to it, that's all fine. If it gets into a back and forth where you actually have a quorum, then it gets a little more problematic.
You know, and I like your point about bringing it into a policy type of
Agreed.
arrangement. And I'd take it one step further. I mean, when we appoint anybody and everybody to any type of committee, we just appoint and say, see you later.
Throw them the wolves.
See you later. So maybe have that type of document as, we make them fill out an application, part of that application, do's and don'ts of the committee.
Yeah.
Well, the clerk does make them for any committee you get assigned to. You have to get sworn in.
Right,
There's a whole, you have to go
got
do an
that.
ethics thing online. I mean,
Right.
if we just add this to, that sort of thing to the
Right,
packets.
yeah. I mean, just for this one, because social media, as we've seen, can really influence not only individuals, but big groups.
Yeah, I mean, we have departments that have Facebook pages, and those are,
Informational.
and that's okay. I mean, it's information that you post. People either react or they don't. The master plan update has a Facebook page as well. That's administered, to my understanding, by staff, so I think, one way to do it would be to have either a staff person do it on behalf of the committee, or to have just like one.
Like a clerk almost.
Yeah, one or at most two committee members
Right.
to maintain it.
During your organizational process, designate those committee members for Facebook or
Yep.
social
Social
media.
media clerk or something
Right,
like that.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I think if we have, decide on some type of document, just as a guidance,
An onboarding process.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
people show up and they're
Exactly.
like, I don't know,
Right.
they
Exactly.
just don't know better.
Right.
And it's, I'll call it ignorance, but it's someone that has never been exposed to it, doesn't know how to proceed necessarily.
gonna do, yeah.
I think Mr. Baker had a comment.
On one policy, one discussion back, when you're talking about the Narcan and the opioid crisis there, we're in the process of updating our school policy that will allow the school nurses to administer under
Narcan.
emergent, yes, there. So we're catching up with making sure that those procedures are in place at the school level. We haven't finished the whole process, but that's underway already to make sure that we're set to deal with it at the schools.
That's great. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, that's great. That's good information, and I know that the police department, the fire department, they're well-versed. From where we sit, I think it's more of an education thing. I hate to call it PR, because it's not something,
awareness.
public awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can do stuff with LCTV, and so I want to be in front of it. So I think we have an opportunity to do something, and if we can affect one kid.
And I think that was one of the topics at the MMA conference this year, the governors, what's it called, pushing towns to take a leadership role in the opioid crisis, so we can look at the tools that they are kind of recommending
idea.
towns to use, because they put out a kind of a list, but public awareness was like the number one thing, so
Right.
I'm totally on board with that. Chief?
And Chairman Ken, I'm going to have Deputy Chief Patterson just real quick give you a quick rundown on an initiative that that actually, Deputy Chief Patterson, as you all know, or some of you may not know, he's been involved in drug court since its inception up at Air District Court. He's one of the original, he's the original officer there, and he stayed on as a deputy. And we're now involved in a 10-town initiative, and I'd like him to kind of go over what we're doing, and at some point I'll be looking to the board with some support on some issues from him.
Well, it started out, other towns around us, Bedford, Concord, and towns that way out of Concord District Court, started working to get a grant for a mental health clinician. And so they joined, they got the grant, and now they have a mental health clinician that is part of their emergency service provider that actually rides in each town 1 day a week and then responds to mental health crises with that town. And if it happens in another town, they transfer her over and get the person there. Out this way, we had kind of I started it, looking into the grant. We had kind of an issue with, we have 3 different mental health emergency service providers that handle out of Air District Court for the towns that go there. So there was a little, they weren't playing nice in the sandbox and willing to give up territory. But we started working with 10 towns like Pepperell, Ashby, Ashburnham, and the other towns out of there. And we found a separate provider that's more going to do mental health, but also more into the opioid and handle that type of crisis. So we're working with Pepperell Chiefs, actually writing the grant right now, and we're hoping to get more of that up and running, where we'd have a clinician and be involved with that. So definitely something we'll bring you some more information.
That's great, Jeff.
On, and then maybe if we get a few people together, yourself included, to go over the information that he has. So.
Thank you.
One reason the clinician is so important is, there's still for a person to come to us, it's very difficult a lot of times. They know Class A heroin or a lot of these Class A drugs, have some hefty, jail time and other things associated with them. And as many times as I try to explain to them, if there's an overdose or something like that, if you call us, that person cannot be charged with any kind of a crime. We're there to help, get medical help, get Narcan, get whatever we need to them. But something also has to be made quite clear is, with the new drugs that are out there, with the Narcan, sometimes it doesn't just take 1 or 2 doses. And that only gives you, the Narcan only buys you time. Doesn't take it all away and end it. It buys you time to get them to the hospital and get them treatment. So these people that have Narcan at home will use it, and then if they don't call us, the person is going to relapse into that narcotic issue, that issue again, because all it does is buy time. So we need to educate, we need to have it. We just recently, within the last 2 weeks, had an opiate death in our community of a young man, and it's not the first one, and I wish I could say it would be the last one, but it's something we're really working hard on.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Consider goes. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll talk about that policy thing, probably during our policy discussions.
Sounds good, yeah, thank you.
Selectman Glavy, anything else? I know you chimed in earlier, but I don't know if.
Yeah, no, I couldn't contain myself, so I'm all set now.
Excellent.
Alrighty, system.
I too would like to congratulate everyone who ran for office, and for those, of course, that were elected. I'm extremely fortunate to have this board here, so I'm looking forward to a wonderful year. Go team. All right, 7:20, so 7:30. We've got 18 minutes before our public hearing.
Take up the items under number 7.
7, okay, do 7A. 7A is an update on the annual special town meeting, a recap and follow-up.
Just by way of a general update, we have a summary of the articles that passed the town meeting and some preliminary steps that we will be taking. I'll just say I've already been in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers about next steps for the Mill Pond Restoration Project. They are preparing the form of a feasibility cost share agreement, which will be coming forward for your approval, and we will run that by the Clean Lakes Committee on its way back to the board. I know that the fire station project is proceeding. That's under the auspices of the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. They're the ones who'll be taking the votes on, selecting the engineers and so forth, but that project is going great guns. Chief, any update on?
We're actually we'll be meeting on Wednesday with the Corel Group to update the conceptual drawing and add some detail to that and start fine tuning the design. So we'll look forward to that.
So have you selected an architect yet? No.
We did.
Oh, you did?
Last week it was a busy week. We picked the OPM, which is the Vertex, and on Thursday night, we selected the Corel Group to be the architect for the
Oh,
station.
nice.
Which, if you remember, he's the same one who did the police station.
All right.
You're going for brick again? Brick
Yes.
fortress.
What? Huh?
Something to that effect.
What?
But the neighbors will live it.
Facade? What happened to the metal building?
It's metal underneath.
It'll look marvelous.
Cha-ching, cha-ching,
Buy a brick, Jimmy?
cha-ching.
So we're on track. The reason that was in the special town meeting was so that we can have it ready for a fall
A
special
lot
town
of discussion
meeting.
Monday night about that.
Yeah, you know
I
what?
think there was.
You know what, though, the fact that there was not any floor discussion about that is just a testament to the huge amount of work that's been done on the project up until the big vote on Monday night. So credit to the chief and all
Thank
his
you.
folks for all the hard work that they've done. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The rest of the update is, we've got a number of procurements that the departments will be doing, that we will be working, we'll probably have the stormwater team back here sooner rather than later on what our next steps are going to be, as there's a lot of training and briefing that's taking place now that EPA and Mass DEP is doing for local officials. As that kicks in.
Do they have to wait for the bylaws to be approved by the Attorney General, or can we move forward?
No, they don't. We can move forward, although that's one of the boxes that we can importantly check off, that it's passed. We will work with the town clerk to get those bylaws into the Attorney General for approval so that they actually take effect.
Is there any type of expedited process you can do?
There should be. Yeah, we can explore that. It's just, it will
I
be
don't
a
know if it
matter.
impact, your negotiations with DEP and Mass DEP and
Yeah,
EPA and all that.
I think that because the most important thing is the town meeting took the vote. We know that we will ultimately get AG approval because our bylaws are, nearly identical to ones passed in other communities. But we will make sure that we work on that, on those bylaws to get them done. And we'll work with the town clerk on that. On the Castle and the Trees Playground, as we've discussed before, the $100,000 that the state gives has to be encumbered by June 30, and Bonnie is taking care of that with the PMBC, so that we'll have that covered. The additional $100,000 becomes available as of July 1st. Other things that we're doing, we have an authorizing vote now on the tax title of butter lot sales parcels. And we can schedule that for an agenda item. If the board would prefer, we can schedule that for an agenda item with the treasurer to whether you want to proceed with that or not. We've also continued to have inquiry from one of the interested parties who wants to have the board vote to offer up yet another piece of property that's adjacent, and we've not scheduled that request.
So during our deliberations on the tax title or the abutters program, I had brought up that so long as the language, and I know town council's on it, in regards to making existing lot, I mean, the abutters program is to improve the lot and, help out, but, you can't get a bigger house, you can't get, more bedrooms, so long as those deed restrictions are written into those particular two lots that we offered and approved.
They would be.
You just need to stay on top of that.
We will do that. The Nagog Hill Road easements we have tonight as a proposed motion, and that's great. We've got those documents all signed. And so we'll get the other bylaws forward, and you're asked to also vote tonight on, to send a letter to the legislators to file for special legislation to increase to give us one additional package store license. So the only other item that I have specifically as a follow-up, that there had come a question about whether the board wanted to discuss further the composition of the Alumni Field Renovation Design Committee, and we just pushed the question off till after we knew if there was a town meeting vote, but it's at your discretion. There was a request from some staff to have staff be voting members. It's frankly not, it hasn't been the policy to do that. There are a few exceptions that we have staff, including myself, are on the personnel board because the personnel bylaw says so. But by and large, it's boards and citizens that are on the committees, and then the staff's the committees. The staff is there, I've never seen staff opinions and, recommendations not heard. But, when it comes to a vote, that's really your policy prerogative of whether you want to have staff positions vote or not. But the practice has been to just have board members and citizens.
And this was specifically Park and Rec, and I believe Jimmy's position. Jimmy,
I'm not sure Jim was
I
looking
don't
to have
know
a
if Jim
voting.
wanted it, but if Park and Rec was going to get it, I didn't want to leave
Right.
out highway or schools.
My opinion was that Park and Rec commissioners had an opportunity to appoint, whether it was Alicia or one of the commissioners, and they appointed one of the commissioners. As the board is constituted, there's 9 members. We talked about the potential of opening up to 10 members when we had to eliminate one of the candidates for the at-large position. We decided that let's keep it at 9. There was a reason we went to 9. So I'm of the opinion that I think we stay at 9. She's certainly going to be heard. I've already extended, there is a meeting Wednesday night. I've extended an invitation to her. She appreciated it. So I think it was more, she was under the understanding that she would have an opportunity, but she certainly has the opportunity to be heard, but not to vote.
Because to complicate matters, isn't she a resident of the town?
She is a
too?
resident,
Right. So if she could have got one of the 9 spots in the appointing process, but yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Agree.
Leave it as is.
So,
But if you hear
no
anything,
action?
yeah,
Yes, no action.
if you hear anything during your first meetings or anything, and, feedback would be good. But I'm with you on that, too.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we do have motions under items 7A, 2, and 3, which the first one has to do with Nagog Hill Road easements. And one of them is by eminent domain, but the other is a gift. Because we don't do eminent domains if the property owner doesn't want to agree to that. So we had one property owner who was fine with doing, having an eminent domain taking, so we're presenting you with an agreement for taking. The other property owner was absolutely fine with the project, absolutely fine with granting permission, not fine with a taking. So we have framed it in the form of a gift. And they have signed it, and it's a practical matter, there's no difference. The rights that we...
Benefit could be a clearer title if you take it by
Right,
eminent domain.
indeed, yeah, and that's typically why we prefer to acquire property by eminent by a friendly taking, because then we obtain pure title as opposed to obtain whatever title the property owner has. In this case, though, as a practical matter for, a drainage easement, we're satisfied that the needs of the town can be met with a gift, and we're happy to accept the gift from the property owner.
Board members, any discussion? Mr. Knox?
No, this time.
No, this one. Mr. Fab?
Yeah, no, I think we heard about this at town meeting, and, Tom has briefed us well. And it's a friendly eminent domain,
The keyword. Friendly.
friendly.
Mr. DeGos?
I agree. Friendly taking, no further debate.
Mr. Lee?
I'm not sure if it's friendly in air, though, tonight. The air town meeting has an eminent domain taking. I saw Chris Hillman at the post office today. The huge issue, talk about eminent domain, is up at air town meeting tonight for that easement or the access that they need.
Train station.
To the train station.
Right. Yeah.
And the parking that they want to put in there, and there's like $1 million or more at stake with whether they proceed with that project or not, if they get a taking vote from their town meeting. So,
I like the way we do our parking.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
MBTA buys it,
Yeah.
MBTA does it. That's a nice way to do it.
Okay, very good. I'm good as well. Yes, that'd be great.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Article 17 of the May 2nd, 2016 annual town meeting as follows relative a plan land entitled Permanent Easement, Nagog Hill Road, Littleton, Massachusetts, prepared by Green International Affiliates Incorporated, dated May 2, 2016. 1, to accept as gift the drainage easement from Robert A. Morse and Doreen A. Morse as shown on proposed permanent easement for drainage purposes area equals 290 square feet. And 2, to execute an order of taking for maintenance easements from the Littleton Conservation Trust shown as proposed permanent easement for maintenance purposes area equals 190 square feet. And proposed permanent easement for maintenance purposes equals 536 square feet.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Do we dare try 7A3 and
And there will be some documents for you to sign.
that's nice one. All right, 7A3 home rule petition, additional package store all alcohol list license.
Town meeting has authorized you to request special legislation, so the next step will be for you to vote to do so.
Board, any
Figure that
discussion?
Town has spoken.
You guys good?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I think it gives us the opportunity to grant the license if we so wish, but there's no way that it says we have to grant 2 licenses. So it just gives us the opportunity.
We're only going for one.
It's one license.
Sorry.
Yeah, the motion was
Yeah,
one
yeah,
license.
one.
Yeah, the
One,
vote
my bad.
was, yeah. And I've already had some inquiry about, well, can I apply for the license? The answer is no, because we don't have the license. If you want to give us a letter expressing your interest in it, we will let you know when the license is available. And one of the things that the state's been talking about for the pouring licenses, which there is a proposal that the governor's made to allow local authorities to set the quota for pouring licenses, not package stores, but for
On-premise.
pouring. That if we were to avail ourselves of that at some point, then you'd have to go through a process to determine, well, how many do you need and why do you need them? And then to open it up to general, it's not first come, first serve. There would have to be some kind of a process that you put in place where you say the license is available and then invite applications. So I see us doing something similar on this one if this passes. And it could take months there's lots of bills like this going through the legislature, and sometimes they go through quickly and sometimes they take a long time.
Well, hopefully our representatives and senator can pay attention to this request, so.
Usually it depends on what they need from, or what the chairman of the committee needs from that legislator.
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know what the cost, I don't know what the price is of this license, but support of some other bill, perhaps.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, if we're good, then look for a motion on this one as well.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Article 22 of the May 2nd, 2016 Annual Town Meeting to request State Senator Jamie Eldridge and State Representative James Arcerio file a petition in the General Court for special legislation as set forth therein authorizing the Town of Littleton to grant one additional license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages not to be drunk on the premises.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Don't be drunk on the premises. All right, public hearing, 7:30. Item number 5, Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza of Littleton.
I'm going to read
Yep.
being the clerk.
Please.
All right, public hearing, Board of Selectmen public hearing for all alcoholic beverages license application, Anthony's Cold Fired Pizza of Littleton LLC. Doing business as Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, 495 Great Road, AKA 201 Constitution Ave. The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, May 9th, 2016, at 7:30 in the Littleton Town Offices, Room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, to act on an all-alcoholic restaurant license application under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, subsection 12, submitted by Stephen Barter, manager of Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza of Littleton, LLC, doing business as Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, for the property located at 495 Great Road, AKA 201 Constitution Ave, Littleton, Mass., known as The Point, a mixed-use development comprising of 7 lots and approximately 90.27 acres of land shown on parcel 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, and 1-7 on Assessors Map R18. The applicant is seeking approval for the sale of all alcoholic beverages Monday through Sunday from 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. at the premises described as approximately 3,058 square feet located in the first floor of a single-story building with 3 entrances and exits, in an outdoor patio service area at 495 Great Road, AKA 201 Constitution Ave, Littleton, Mass. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen, Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460 by noon, Friday, May 6th, or in person at the hearing. Littleton Board of Selectmen, James Carr, previous chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, well, welcome.
Hi. Caroline O'Connell, I'm here representing Anthony's. I was here about...
You've been here
I
before.
was here before. The ABCC requested we submit a few extra documents on a couple of different additional officers and directors, so we did. So I just need the Form 43 and the application to go back up to the ABCC with the additional documents.
Yep. You had a public hearing on February 22nd
Yeah.
for this liquor license and for the common vic license. You approved them both.
Yep.
ABCC took no action.
Exactly.
Pending further information to us, which we've received, which the police chief has reviewed and is okay with. So we can represent that the information that the ABCC was looking for has been received and to the satisfaction of the police chief.
Okay, very good. Any questions, board? Thoughts?
When do you plan on opening?
I believe they would like to open June 1st. A little bit
Better hand walk
aggressive,
this up
but...
to the ABCC tomorrow then.
Yeah, well,
Chief, any issues?
No issues whatsoever, and no issues with the documents that came through today either. So I don't know what council said on those, Mr. President. We're okay.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, we look forward to a grand opening June 1st, you said?
that's what I hear, but I don't know. We'll see.
Have a soft crust opening, right?
Oh, God.
Not bad.
You usually get notified anyways when these openings are happening,
Yes,
so we can
yeah.
let everybody know. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Slice of humor over there.
Nice of
Get a
them.
little saucy.
Anything else?
It's only 7:30.
Sorry.
You guys are
It's the
so
pain, it's the
cheesy.
pain pills.
Oh, man, this is good.
No, I we asked all the questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Melissa's probably going to say something about local farms, so I'll leave that to you.
Yep. No, like I said, just send us information.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I'd be interested if there was any public input. It doesn't appear there is.
Any public input? All right, then I'll
All right,
look
nice
for a
meeting.
motion.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the application of Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza of Littleton LLC, Stephen Botter, manager of DBA Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza for 201 Constitution Ave, The Point, for an all-alcoholic restaurant license under MGL Chapter 138, Section 12, for the sale of all alcoholic beverages Monday through Sunday from 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. at the premises described as a single-story retail space identified as Unit D2-1 with approximately 3,058 square feet located on the first floor of a single-story building with 3 entrances and exits and an outdoor patio service area with issuance of said license to be subject to ABCC approval and passing all local inspections.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great,
All right,
thank
thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you, thanks very much.
Is Dan Marino going to be there?
I don't know. Usually,
Come on.
usually comes to the openings, and I've been told once the flight ticket is booked, that we don't care what you have to do, get us a license, because we're not changing his life. So that's kind of how it works. That's just the,
So watch Marino's Twitter account.
cards in the affidavit.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks, Kevin.
thank you.
Let's see. We had said 7:45 for the library. Do you have more folks coming? Mark, should,
No, we can.
okay. And great, PMBC is here. Oh, great, we've got,
Item
there
6,
you go.
library building project update. Joint meeting with the library trustees and PMBC Permanent Municipal Building Committee. Come on up, come on down.
And we have a presentation.
And working TVs.
Oh, yeah, you got TV working. What was it? Did anybody ever find out?
Technical difficulties.
Yes, of course.
Push
We've
the
had-
wrong button?
Well, we've had, I think they did some equipment upgrades, but also did some training for all personnel, so we will. The bottom one is forward, and that one
There's one little
is
button over there we forgot.
Yeah, really.
backwards.
So I'm Sam Alvarez, I'm the library director. Thank you for meeting with me today. We just prepared a short little presentation on the findings of the library site selection committee, which met for the first time back in February. So the committee was composed of members of various boards, including myself, Bill Kolb representing the Board of Health, Andrea Curran representing Citizen at Large, Melissa Hebert representing the Selectmen, Andrew Samarco representing the Board of Conservation, Steve Moore representing FinCom and PMBC, Ed Mullen representing Planning Board, Mark Rombacher representing the Library Trustees, David Sill, the Library Trustees, and Robert Romilly representing the PMBC. So a little background on the process of the planning and design grant for the library. Germany Architects was hired back in April of 2015 to complete a community needs assessment. That was one of the requirements of the grant, and that was completed back in April of 2015. And if you're interested in looking at it, you can find it on the Littleton Library website at littletonlibrary.org. We also worked with him and the committee to complete a library building program, which was completed in June of 2015. That can also be found on the library website. We hired an OPM back in June of 2015. We hired CDR McGuire. And we hired an architect. In July of 2015, we hired Johnson Roberts to create its schematic design. In the winter, in last February, we created the Library Site Selection Committee to determine a site for the library, and we're currently working on schematic designs. So the construction grant, the announcement for the grant has actually already been announced. It was announced yesterday. And the construction grant covers 40 to 50% of the construction cost. If we construct a green library that is LEED certified, we'll get additional 2 to 3.5% back after the library is complete. For the construction grant, we can expect to compete with about 30 libraries. Everybody gets something. It just depends on what your need is. So there'll be multiple grant rounds as funds become available. There's about $110 million that have been provided by the state for this project. Libraries that do not make the first grant round, which is announced in July of 2017, will be ranked and put on a waiting list based on need. And the clock doesn't start on the financial requirement from the town until 6 months after the library has been notified that they've received the grant. The Library Site Selection Committee met four times. They reviewed 4 potential library designs and sites. The first was to expand our current location, to renovate and expand at our current library site. Second was to tear down the current library and build a new library in that location. Third was to build a whole new library in the Morgan property. And the fourth was to build a new library at the Town Hall tennis courts, the Shag Street tennis court. All plans are roughly for the same size library, about 22,000 square feet. We looked at various factors, including relative costs, availability of the library during construction, building reuse, etc. So here's an evaluation matrix that our architect came up with for some of the pros and cons for each site. To renovate our existing library, some of the pros are that it's basically staying in the same site, so people will know where to find it. It's good visibility, it keeps the existing building, and we can keep the current parking. Some of the cons, the existing structure doesn't currently support the 150 pounds per square foot load for book stacks. The building was built as a school, not as a library, and libraries require a stronger floor to build for all the books, the weight of the books. The architects believe that renovating would be a difficult addition. They would have to build, they would have to expand on both sides of the building, so that is a little more difficult. It would be inefficient as far as energy efficiency due to the different expansions. And the staff would also need to move into a temporary facility because it wouldn't be safe to operate the library while construction was going on. Estimated costs would put it at $1.75 million over a baseline cost. So right now we're estimating the library would cost between $8 and $10 million, with MBLC grant covering up to 50% of that cost. We are currently in the process of finding a cost estimator, an independent professional cost estimator. They'll give us a more accurate budget estimation. So to tear down the...
So can we ask questions as you go along?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sure. All right, so I guess my question is, the existing structure will not support 150, were any tests done? Is that just, how was that determined?
Building engineer for the architect determined that, and I believe before I started, MBLC, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, I believe they came out and did some sort of tests that determined that it's rated more for about 100 pounds per square foot.
Were there any reports, any diagnostic reports, any reporting of that are we aware of, or is it?
Stress analysis or anything?
There used to be a school library in the building, so I don't know how that could... Yeah, well...
Same building.
Same building, yeah.
So the architects came out, and I don't know who came out with them as far as, but they looked at the plans for the library, or plans for the existing school, and said, based on the plans and some other, that it wasn't rated for the load. I don't know that anyone's actually done a physical stress test. We've heard this from at least 2 different organizations, both the architect and MBLC came out before and said it's not rated. And we asked if we should be concerned. They said, well, the books haven't fallen through the floor yet. So that's...
The structural engineer looked at the as-built drawings. The existing building was built and rated at 120 pounds per square foot, which doesn't support the 150 required for book loading.
Do we know what we're at right now?
120.
But what are we actually physically putting on?
I have no idea.
It's kind of important information, I would say. I mean, if we're only putting 90 pounds per square foot, then it's kind of a point.
But if the stacking is designed at 150 pounds for the new library, then that's a concern.
Okay. Were these standards not in place when the library was constructed there, 30 years ago? I mean, I don't know, I can't imagine those kind of engineering standards have changed much over time.
Well, the collection has grown. I think the children's room in specifically has way too much weight in it because they have a lot more, they've just had tons of books up there.
We also,
Lower heights, right?
yeah, but there's, the density of the books is much. We looked at one point of rearranging the library for usage patterns and determined that the books that are on the first floor, the ground level, we couldn't move up because of the weight, right? So you're limited in what you can do with the current library based on those loads. And I don't know if, well, the architect, when he came up with the plan of reusing the existing building without demolishing it, basically we had, most of the books were in the new sections, not in the existing. Or there was a lot less of the book load in the existing library so that we didn't have to worry about the weight.
There was one other con that I had asked to be put on this list, which doesn't appear here, that any off-site structure will add to the carbon footprint of the township. And the township has just been recently designated as a green communities community, I guess. And if we don't reuse in some form the existing footprint, we'll be adding to the carbon footprint.
Oh, we're gonna be adding to the carbon footprint no matter what. If that structure's gonna stay there, we're still gonna use it, then we're gonna, the plan is to put
We won't
another
be adding
building.
another building to the township.
What Steve, I think, is trying to say is, maybe it doesn't belong under this renovation one, maybe it's the other three it should be under,
Well, it's under the cons for the,
other three.
for the, you know,
The new
an
building,
off-site.
right.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay,
new buildings.
all right, I got you, all right.
So it's not the existing one, I
All
get you.
right.
So if I could, Sam, you had said that the estimate of this project is between 8 and 10 million. And I'm assuming, does the Mass Board of Library Commissioners have similar estimates for all the other projects in the queue? And do they know what the total, I mean, if they've got this number from us, do they have the similar numbers from the others who are in the current round to be able to compare what's that total to the total amount of money that is available in the...
So that's why we're hiring the independent cost estimators to come up with an actual cost to provide to MBLC. Right now, this is just an estimate.
I think, Keith, to answer your question, MBLC doesn't have any numbers from us.
They don't.
Is that
Okay.
correct? Do they have a number in their pot? How much are they spending per year, I guess is one question.
So the state has given them $100 and some million, but that's spread out over the next 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So as money becomes available, they determine which libraries
Get priority and
get
fit
right.
what their
exactly.
plan is, that kind of thing.
Right, so in July of 2017, they'll come up with the first round of about 4 or 5 libraries, and then they'll create a waiting list of the rest of the libraries, and then they get,
Just reshuffle.
right, they get money as they get money.
I think, I'm not sure if this is where you're going, Keith, but if there's 30 in queue, and the average is $10 million apiece, that's $300 million.
Yeah, just to see if they're, where our project might fit. I mean, is it just so, is there a likelihood that, you know, because there are projects totaling 3 to 5 times more than they have available, or whatever the number might be.
So my understanding is they rank the libraries by the size of the town. They put you in different buckets.
Yep.
Right, and then they rank you according to your need, and then they try to pick out of those different buckets according to need as well. So someone might have a $20 million library, someone might have a 2. I don't think the number is actually based, I don't think your rank on the list depends on the amount of money at all, right? They just go through, picking from these different
Right, it's
large,
based on
small,
need.
medium.
Are we guaranteed this 40 to 50%?
Yes.
And I just add that the 40 to 50% excludes all site work costs.
It's a shovel, right?
All non-eligible costs. So for example, and there are 2 that we've identified, not to jump ahead, but the, if the project were to go on the tennis court site, then there's the matter of first replacing those tennis courts, which is $600,000 plus whatever the cost of the site, the new site is. That's from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners standpoint, that's not a part of this project. From Town of Littleton's standpoint, that's very much a part of this project, because whether you get to do this project or not, it sequentially first requires that you figure out if you can move the tennis courts and so on. The other issue that's not a project cost, but is certainly one from the town standpoint, is the reuse of the space that the library would vacate. That we would reuse it for something, it's not going to sit bare, and that while that's not a library problem to solve, it's a town problem to solve for us to decide, well, what would we do with that space, and to factor in that cost. So, and neither of those things that I mentioned are fit into what the state looks at for a library project, but it's certainly something that what the town looks at as an overall project cost. And I will say I've been grateful that when I've raised those issues with the trustees and with Sam, that they've listened, they've sat down with us to talk through those things so that they understand that those are on the radar screen too.
So all of these projects have those kind of hidden costs, like if you're remodeling the existing building, the cost of relocating isn't covered. If you're going to the Morgan property, the cost of building a road won't be covered, right? So all of the projects have hidden costs that will lower your percentage, right? They don't lower your actual reimbursement, it just will lower the percentage you get reimbursed.
We are allowed to, there is a formula that we are allowed to consider, even if it's already town-owned property, you can consider the value of the new site. There's some formula that you can consider the value of the new site as being a local share. That's, let's say if the match is 50% of the total eligible project costs, and, we decide that maybe a couple of $100,000 or whatever it might be is the value of the land, that you can credit that to your account and not have to raise it, but.
Mr. Crowley?
I think, Keith, I think to answer your question, I think what you were looking for was square footage, costs, how are they all averaging out per school? Now, for instance, MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, tracks the cost of every single school built in the state. And they came up with a valuation of $286 a square foot is what they'll reimburse cities and towns. Some of the schools are running more than that, $300, $320. Now, if this were, and so that's the number that you want to find, is the cost per square foot for new building ground up or building renovation, because there is clearly an average that you can ferret out. Now, in this case, if it were the $10 million at 22,000 square foot, this would end up being $454 a square foot, which is much higher than the schools are coming up with, around $300 a square foot.
So just to clarify, that $8 to $10 million is not, it's a rough estimate from the architect until we hire the cost estimator. That's just the number we have to work with. It may come up, it may come down. We really don't know until we hire the cost estimator, which is one of the next things we have to do.
The estimated cost, bottom line, I mean, those, who came up with those?
The architect came up with those as well.
Do you have the background details of that? Because those jump off the page at me as being a little unlikely.
The architect has an elaborate spreadsheet of all and he's done quite a few libraries, and the average square foot price, and he's based his estimate on that.
Yeah. I guess I'm not surprised that an architect's estimate will show that a renovation is the most expensive and the new building is the least expensive, but I'd kind of like to see the math myself somewhere.
Well, I'd say that, when the group got together, one of the deal breakers was finding an alternate off-site location for the library and trying to establish the value or the cost of that and how long that would take. I think Melissa kind of headed that up, and maybe she can speak better to it than I can.
Sure, well, I guess I'd say we looked at, are there places available around town, and the answer was kind of yes, but that's right now. So when this actually happened, those may or may not be, and they each had varying costs associated with them, but I guess I'd echo the sense that I got from the committee was that was not a route that they really would prefer due to a lot of effort to move and move back again. So we kind of stopped there.
I think, I guess my bigger questions are prior to the site selection committee's appointment and work, because I know that we had an update last August on the finance committee, and I believe the selectmen had an update as well in early fall.
December.
Was it that late in the year? Okay, and at that time, at least in the FinCom presentation, it was an affirmation of what we had been aware of to date, which was site study in terms of renovation needs, reconstruction, et cetera. I mean, this dates back, myself and FinCom with Betsy Bowling, we had been the FinCom reps to work with the library, and we had worked with one of your predecessors, Kip Robeson, so we were aware of the process from, there through, but it seems like it made a wild jump from last August, when it was still studying needs, to the appointment of the site selection committee, which meets 4 times, and now we've got views of a new library and floor plans, and when and how did all this happen, That's
That was all part of the planning and design grant. That's part of the process.
Well, how much public input was there to that?
There was a committee that was created that,
So which part,
No.
wait, which part are you asking?
We went from a point where we were, applying for grants to get space need studies to having a site selection committee appointed. I see that. I don't know what the charge was, whether the assumption was already there that there would be a new building, or whether that committee was charged with making that determination. But in a space of 4 meetings, we've got plans for a new building.
Well, part of the application.
I don't know how many public hearings there were, how much of a needs assessment was done with the public at large.
Part of the application is to identify a site other than the existing site. So that was the charge of that committee.
It was a site
As writ
selection.
by whom?
Site recommendation was the goal. Now, what you base that recommendation on is a
So the needs assessment happened over a year ago. It happened before we started, and we had the grant.
Yeah.
We went through.
But when you met with us last August, Mark, it wasn't clear that we were getting a new library at that point.
Well, the needs assessment already came out and said we needed more space.
Yes.
Right, and we had the grant to study how to get more space. The original plan wasn't necessarily to build a new building, it was to renovate where we were at, right? Once we hired the architect and started going through the process, it became clearer that renovating where we are at may not be the best solution.
Okay, well, that may be clear to you, but I'm not sure it's clear to the town at large, because a lot has happened in a short period of time, and we're arriving at a very detailed place, and I think we need to tap the brakes a little bit.
So when we started getting to the point where we says renovating where we're at, that's when the site selection committee started. Part of the grant that we had says not only do you have to look at renovating in place, but you have to look at a new location, right? So whether we want to move or not, we have to submit 2 plans.
I was aware of that part of the process.
So we were going through this renovating where we're at. By the way the grant works, if you're going to renovate where you're at, you have to renovate the whole building. You can't just say, we're gonna put on an addition and not touch anything else. That's not even in the card. So when you start looking at that, we started playing with
The unpleasant aspects of a potential grant that you apply for is not a great argument for going ahead and building a new building. The fact that they may put some details in there that seem onerous to us. You're saying the only way we could renovate the library is if we renovate Town Hall?
No. The rule of the grant is, if you get the grant from the MBLC to do an addition, you're going to renovate the entire library.
Okay, but that's
part of the
renovation
grant.
can mean a lot of things. I mean, we already heard that there's weight-bearing capacity needs. That's fine, that should be, studied out. If those things have been broken down on a piece-by-piece case of what the specific needs are and why a renovation on-site is not the answer, I don't think this summary is convincing to that end, and I'm sure there's more detail to that, but I guess I'd kind of like to see it.
We can get that for you.
And I'd like to speak just to the idea of renovating the space. Was one of the things that came up was the staff would have to relocate, the whole building would have to be relocated temporarily. And the architect was adamant that we couldn't stay in place. Now, I'm a building inspector, and I see plenty of renovations at Boston College, in LaSalle, in Mount Ida, where people stay in place, they build an addition, then they move over to the addition, then they move back into the space when the other space is renovated. There wasn't an option presented to us.
How about the high school, middle school projects? I mean, wasn't that, there was occupation while
Right,
some of
it
the
just wasn't
construction was
presented
going
to
on?
us as an option, so.
Right.
It's, I think, to address Paul Glavy's comment, I build schools for a living, and when we are at this point, charrette, where we're trying to figure out which option to select, we conduct community charrettes. We bring in neighbors on one night. We bring in every element of town, from public safety to fire to building to all those people come into. We invite them in for a meeting so they can have input. We don't do it in a silo by ourselves. We try to involve as much of the town as possible. That's why we have a community.
We should all
charrette.
have a tour of the building to see what the structural issues are. Finance committee, building committee, selectmen, regulatory boards, all the rest of it. I mean, we should all, it should be being presented. I agree with you, Richard.
Well, the site selection committee had a member of the Board of Health, it had a member of the building.
And it met 4 times, and we have a new library design in front of us.
What did you expect might happen after we?
Well, Paul, that was the task that was assigned to
Well,
the site
again, I raised that
selection
point
committee.
earlier too, Steve. I think part of the problem might have been the charge you were given. I don't blame the committee members for doing what they were asked to do.
That's what we were asked to do, and that's what we
Yeah,
did.
the task was to be able to check the box that the Mass Board of Library Commissioners has in
Right.
the
Yeah.
application process to identify an alternate
I
site.
think the flaw in the
So-
process was prior to that, more than anything, because there needed to be much more of an involved community vetting and awareness, and before that committee, selection process began. So again, I don't think that my fault is with the committee members. It's just, we missed a big step, just prior to that, my estimation. But I'll defer to other members of the committee.
No, I'd say we have to go there now, for sure. And I raised the concern about public input and the process to talk to abutters, all those type of things. So we have to go there for sure.
As we've sort of been saying, there are 2 processes to be managed here. One is that there is an explicit grant application process that the library trustees have with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. There's also the process that we have as a community, which is how do you get any project through town meeting? And it's by having many people, all the interested parties involved in the process, just like, the goal is to, I guess, to, the standard the fire chief set, so much advance work that there was little discussion when it comes time for the vote. And that's because you have all of the boards involved, all the community groups, and that there's a common understanding of what's going on.
I understand the demands of the grant program process, but I also understand the reality of that, is those things are written to encourage communities to build new facilities, to create construction jobs. That's how they get passed by the legislature. So I think we need to put Littleton needs first and determine what those are. And if we need a new library at the end of a process, the sort of thing which the schools and the public safety buildings have been subject to, then that's where we end up. But I don't feel convinced that we have had that happen yet.
I think one of the questions that you're bringing up, Paul, was one of the questions that we had back when we started talking about the selection committee. I think you guys put together a survey, and just not even back then when we were talking about it, I think there were 237 people out of 9,000 people in town that actually answered anything about that survey. So, but my concern back then was that not enough, that the public hadn't been informed about it.
Well, how many survey questionnaires went out?
I would have to look that up. It was online. There's also several focus groups that were held. This is all before I started. So, I think 3 focus groups were held. I think about 30 people came to each one. And then there were an online survey that was done. As Selectman Knox mentioned, it was around 200 and some odd respondents. And
So it was only online, it wasn't mailed out?
don't believe so. Again, I was.
It was done at least 3 years ago, so I don't remember.
And how many people? I never got one.
Yeah, well, it's all a matter of how it was presented.
I understand,
Yeah,
but,
was it
you know,
advertised?
there's X number of thousand people in town.
You know,
Did we
light
send them to a
bill,
third, two-thirds, half?
237, John. 237 respondents to the survey.
Wow.
Yeah, but how did the survey go out? Because I never got one.
Well, I think Mark had just mentioned, Sam mentioned it was an online survey, and as to how it was distributed.
Probably available
we
at
haven't
the
got
desk
an
at the
answer to that
library, too, I
So
would
the
guess.
library surveys every 5 years, I believe. I don't remember, I mean, I don't know the exact procedures we followed on the last survey. Because they vary between whether whether Light and Water lets us send them out, or how we have to disseminate them. So we do this regularly, right, so.
Sounds like we probably should get a refreshed, since it's 3 years old as well. So if it's coming up again, maybe we can put that part of our public input process is to do another survey, get it out there a little bit wider, more clear, maybe put it in the LELD packets so they're successful.
Part of our goals of planning too, assess needs, prioritize.
Well, Sam, the application has to go in January?
Right, January 2017.
So we have between now and, what, December to get more public input?
A couple of comments, Mr. Cole?
Yeah, I'm speaking as a taxpayer more than I am as a member of the PMBC. There are several things that bother me. I keep hearing about the structural stability of the building to bear the weight of the books. The library has been over there for 20 years, and since I maintain the building, there are no doors over there that are jamming, having a problem opening and closing. I've never seen any cracks in concrete, drywall, or anything. That being said, maybe the building isn't designed to support 150 pounds a square foot. If an addition is put on, that can be relieved by putting the books in the addition, and part of the new concept of the library is more meeting space, more computer space, more electronic space, and all of those things weigh less than books. So if an architect was given the charge of, instead of saying, we want a new library, and told, we want to be able to use this building because it was only built in 1955. That end of the building was built in 1922. Still functional, the envelope is still solid. So I guess what I'm getting at is, an architect is working for the town, and an architect will come up with whatever resolution you present to him. And if we told him right from the get-go, we want to use the existing building, the survey was done, everybody likes the site, we have an area out back to add on to, and for what it's worth, when this first came up, I did a footprint, putting an addition out back, excuse me, out back 38 feet and something like 56 feet long on the grassy area, and then a rounded area connecting the existing corner of the Cooper room to the addition, which would form a perfect lecture hall, which would seat about 72 people. Just throwing it out there. The third floor, I know everybody loves the third floor being the children's area because they like the children's area to be the furthest point from any entrance or exit. So if the third floor was added on to match the front of the second floor, that would add 1,000 square feet. The addition off the back and everything else, it would end up being around 20,000 square feet. Now, with that being said, Shrewsbury Library has had a couple of articles in the Globe because they're adding on to their building. Their building was built in 1903. They're putting on a huge addition. They have been relocated while this is going on. Shrewsbury is a town of 38,000 people. And I went online and I know there is a multitude of things that determines how many square feet you need for a library. One of which is the population of the town and the usage. So Shrewsbury is 38,000 people. I'm gonna round up to 40,000. Their library is gonna end up at about 38,000 square feet. So I'll round up there. Say their library was gonna be 40,000 square feet. Littleton is a town of 9,000 now, soon to be 10. So we'll round up to the 10. Now, using the math, we should have a library about 10,000 square feet.
You can't do
We
that.
already have a library that's about 16,000 square feet, 1.5 times, and I preempted this by saying there's a multitude of things that tells you what size library you need. I'm just using population. But all I'm getting at is, if you just use population, the library is already 1.5 times bigger than what Shrewsbury has. And the footprint for the tennis court building is 24,800. So I can't justify those numbers. And I was only at one site committee meeting. The first site committee meeting, I had a conflict. And the only thing that was really accomplished there was choosing a chair, a co-chair, and a secretary. The second meeting I went to, the architect was there, and he spent, I would have to say, less than 5 minutes eliminating the Morgan property, eliminating tearing down the existing building and rebuilding, and eliminating, adding on, and renovating. And then he went to the new building on the tennis courts. And he said that this was by far the cheapest route to go, by $1.5 million less than the baseline. And I don't know how somebody can present that number without saying how much the Morgan property would cost, how much the renovation and adding on would cost, how much tearing down and rebuilding would cost. I left that meeting quite honestly wondering why we had the meeting.
Well, Bill, let me interject something. You missed the meeting in between where the architect spent a considerable amount of time going over all 4 options.
There wasn't, I only missed the first meeting where they picked a secretary, a chair, co-chair, and a secretary. It was the second meeting that I attended, and that's when he had his presentation.
Well, that was the third meeting, because the second meeting, he went over in great detail 4 options, and for the third meeting, the one that you attended, he was directed not to dwell on the first 3 that were the most costly, and to focus on the less costly. Is that correct? And that's why he focused on the tennis court site.
So I think for me.
And I stand corrected, I missed the meeting.
Well, and I think, I missed a couple too, because we had conflicts with selectmen, and I know a few of us had those same conflicts, and I think that kind of goes back to, again, I don't want to call it public engagement, but you have to hear the same message repeated several times, schedules, doesn't stick, whatever it is. We all need to probably be hearing all these things again, I think. Okay, Mr. Romley, I know you had a comment.
I missed a couple of meetings too because my name got dropped off the email list, but I have a couple of questions. First, do we know the ownership of the tennis court? Second, the site plan that they have laid out there is going to bring parking all the way down behind the tennis court now, down towards where the path is, it goes between the schools. That, and Jimmy can probably verify it, years ago was a dumping ground for the highway department. So now we've got unstable land back there that we haven't considered. And third, I think we're going to be down pretty close to the wetlands. And I'm not sure what the distance is that we're supposed to stay away from the wetlands, but if you look at that site proposal right there, I think you're going to be down pretty close to the wetlands and we're gonna be digging out all that area down in there to make sure that land is stable behind where the tennis courts are right now. And that's only gonna add to the site, all the site work that has to be done, which is gonna jack the price of that library up.
Which is not reimbursable.
So to comment on that, we don't know how many parking spaces we really need. This is the architect's guess of what the number of spaces we need are. We said we didn't, you just threw that many out. We could cut it shorter. We don't know. Right. So it might not, I mean, we agree
Gentlemen,
that one.
Could you direct your
pretty far
comments
back.
through the chair, please?
Keith, could you come?
Just on the question of who controls the site, that based on the research town council has done, and he had done a preliminary review, looked like the answer might be the Board of Selectmen, based on the information that he had available. I asked him to review whatever get whatever information he needed to give a definitive answer. They did that, they did a title search, and the answer is the school committee. Why? Because the property, that particular portion of the property, was acquired by an eminent domain taking in 1920, 21, and 22 for school purposes. And there are no further votes of town meeting that indicate when it was transferred, or if it was transferred to anyone else. So based narrowly on the fact that there was a taking for school purposes, the law says it's controlled by the school committee until the school committee says it isn't. So in order for that to be available, the school committee would need to vote to declare it as surplus to school purposes. I had the related question, I think Darrell asked it, and rightly so, well, if that's true of that portion of the site, if you look at what the assessor's map is for where this property is, where the town office, it's on the same parcel as the Russell Street school and the middle school. That's right.
Our accountant's working on the back end, we'll get back to it.
You do that every year.
But since this parcel is a different parcel than the other one, that town council is going to need to do a title search on this portion of the property as well. And I think Darrell's point was, well, if we need to procedurally fix one portion of that parcel, ought we not to fix them all? And we will, and so we'll have town council look at it. Somewhere along the line, I'm confident, and, finding votes from, I can speak for votes for the last 10 years, for 9 years, but the further back you go in history, the more problematic it is that there may or may not have been the vote that you thought you needed that the town would have needed to do what it did. So we will find those votes and or have a direction of what action needs to be taken. But somewhere along the line, I'm confident when the school department abandoned this building, that somebody took a vote and said you didn't need it for school purposes anymore.
We still have a presence on the third floor.
Can we get this done before the budget season too?
One last comment on that. We do not, right now, I don't think, have another site to put a tennis court. And the school is still using the tennis courts, and you're talking at least $600,000 or more to replace that tennis court that's out there. And if you gotta buy a site, you're gonna add to that too, so. It's just another thing that's gonna raise that $8 to $10 million price tag.
Yeah.
Before we get on too further, we just went through this iteration of the meetings. You spoke. Was there any meetings that everybody from the committee were at?
All together?
All together.
What committee?
The site
Selection advisory.
Just for curiosity.
I think I only missed one.
I was there for all of them.
I missed one or two. I think I missed one.
I think you missed one.
Just for edification.
I think it was aware that for one, because it got dropped off the
I think
list.
it goes to Mr. Glavy's point of, again, just, being able to communicate out to the masses, and to have a cohesion with that group to sell whatever you want to do, I think is very important too. That's my only comment, I'm sorry.
Mr. Elliott?
Yeah, I just learned now that there's the delta between the three options, and the final option was a little over $1 million, or just about $1 million. And when I mentioned earlier that work is being done in a silo, you see, it hadn't considered the tennis court replacement. And I did some numbers because I've done maybe a dozen tennis courts with all the schools that I've built. And they don't run 600. If you're going to replace 2 tennis courts like that, you're going to exceed $1 million. And it's Massachusetts. It's Massachusetts' unique public bid laws. It's not easy. So that's $1 million that has to be looked back at in this delta. If you're not operating in a silo, where you're not looking at that $1 million. If you saw that $1 million out there, maybe option 2 would be more beneficial. If you added that back in. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know when we took the vote, I had explicitly said my vote was based on the assumption that we had right then, was it was $100,000 to replace a tennis court. So it's not even, we're not on the right ballpark, so we've got to get that added in here. I totally agree.
But maybe we should finish, let
Yeah, let
Sam
Sam
go
get through
through.
it.
We're obviously going to have to, and maybe at a future meeting, the rest of the library trustees will come join us too, because it's an important project. Everybody ought to have a, say in the process.
Meanwhile.
Copy, Mick. So basically, the site selection committee recommends that they voted that the library move to the tennis court site. They felt it was the most cost-effective option. We would not need to rent space, we would not need to move out of the library. The site keeps the library as an integral part of the town facilities on the campus. Current library space could be allocated to other town departments as we determined, and we would help Park and Rec to find a new site for a tennis court. So here are the model slides. This is what the tennis court would look like on the new building would look like on the tennis court site. Floor plans and model views. And the current existing library space is 15,177 square feet. So that space could be allocated to other town departments. So moving forward, I'm not sure if we need to speak to the school department now, but we need to vote to use the site. We'll work with Park and Rec to find an alternative site for tennis courts. We're currently working on getting a cost estimator to prepare a budget and estimate for the costs. And we'll need to perform geotechnical surveys of the site once it's chosen. And we'll apply for the grant in January of 2017. So at the next town meeting vote in May of 2017, we'll need 2 votes. One for approval to apply for and receive and expend construction grant funds, and a second vote for the approval of the final schematic design. And then once we receive the grant, we'll have 6 months to obtain local funding through town meeting.
Sam, I have a question. The independent cost estimate, is that only for the tennis court site, or is it for all 4 options?
Well, he hasn't hired yet. We haven't given them a directive yet, but it would be for at least 2 sites. So one we were hoping would be the tennis court site, and then a second site is determined by the trustees.
And to add to that, we're going to factor in the cost of building new tennis courts if we had a site for them. But we need to know the site to figure that in.
Well, you can't move forward without replacing the tennis courts, right?
We don't want to move forward without replacing the tennis courts. We want to work with Park and Rec or whoever to find a new site for the
I
tennis
understand you don't
courts.
want to, but you really can't, because we can't take those if we don't replace those.
Right. So it would be nice to have, if we're going forward with the tennis.
Nice to have, we have to have.
We would like to have a committee with Park and Rec and whoever else should be on it to pick a site for the new tennis court so we can go through the same site selection process, right? I don't know who should be on that committee.
And I think what I'm hearing is we're not quite there yet. So I jotted down some notes. Let me just go through what I see as either open actions or questions that we have to get answered. So, and it's in no random order, it's just as it came up. Back to tennis court, school committee has to declare surplus on tennis court if that's the way you go down, but they have to do that. stress tests needed / wanted on existing building, along with a walkthrough with the various boards and committees that would be kind of involved in making this happen. Add the additional carbon footprint to the cons of options 2 through 4. I don't know what this note was. I have the cost per square foot, $300. That's, I can get with you on that one, Rich. Get the math behind those numbers, and what would be good to, and Mark, I think you made the point, depending on the option, various things go in and out of scope for the funding, so it'd probably be good to show, okay, for this option, this is what's in scope for the funding, and these are all the things that are not in scope for the funding, so breaking out those costs. Get the public involved, community charrettes, expanded survey. You take a look at how the chief of, or the fire chief had done his fire station things. Existing building option, Bill Cole's note, which was, can we get a little bit more creative with the design to move the books to maybe the extension and use the existing floors for more meeting space, etc. How do we confirm exactly what space is needed? There's various factors, so what are all those, and how do we all agree, yes, that's how much space we need? The site plan for using the tennis courts out back where the parking lot is concerned about it not being stable and a concern with the wetlands. And then lastly, getting the cost in of replacing a tennis court at, approximately $1 million for that option. So that's just, again, random notes on all the to-dos I think we still have out there.
Madam Chairman, the issue with the book stacking in the renovation was already addressed by the architect. He has created the book stacks in the new space or on the ground level on the two, I guess was it a renovation and tear down? Renovation, there were 2 renovations and a tear down model. So the book stacking has already been addressed by the architect to take care of that issue.
In all options?
In all options.
Okay.
So it could be done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can just add something that occurred to me after, I think you've captured that perfectly, but another thought I had is if, one point that I don't feel comfortable having heard enough information that the case was made is, there must be other communities that have dealt with space needs for renovation, and then went the addition and renovation route. And I wonder if we could spend a little time investigating what those towns did, what problems they ran into, and if, maybe if it wasn't so impossible for other communities to do that, maybe we should spend a little time exploring more. Yeah.
Got it.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question. What do you see the role for PMBC to do? Right now, we have a couple members on the committee, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a good.
We haven't get that, right?
Yeah.
Until assuming it would have moved forward, then it would be handed to the PMBC after town meeting.
Well, we've already handed it to
Funds
them.
are allocated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in 2014, when we first had the town meeting funding or the approval for your initial project with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, that this board voted to add 2 library trustees and a director onto the PMBC for purposes of the library project. So that recognizes that, at least in terms of the local procedure, the lead dog on any building project is the PMBC. Again, we've got 2 procedures here, though. We've got that the gatekeeper is the trustees for the grant process that goes to the state, but the local process of a major building project that we go through the PMBC with representation from the, whatever the department or committee is. It just goes to show what the challenges are, though, to have an inclusive process which not only meets the needs, again, checks all the boxes to maintain eligibility for a state grant, but also manages the equally important, or more important, perhaps, process of having the voters decide whether you proceed with the project or not. And that, I think it's already at the PMBC doorstep.
If I may.
Please.
So I think the chair, hit the nail right on the head by saying there are some to-do lists. I think that for a multi-million-dollar project, to have 4 meetings is a disservice to the entire community, in my opinion. I think that the grants will be there. The grants, the money is allocated through the state on an annual basis, or whenever they do their allocating. I just think we need to engage more of the community. That's my opinion, and to get the PMBC full buy-in on your recommendation as to either 1, 2, 3, or 4 would be very helpful too, so.
Or if there's a new plan, too.
Or if there's a new plan. And I think, the points, and it keeps coming up, I mean, we need to do some homework town hall-wise also with the schools in regards to who owns the property and who's got regulatory authority over the property. But the fact that we're looking to displace the tennis courts that the schools currently use for matches and the public uses for recreation purposes, it's got to be part of this plan. It has to be delineated that way, so, when folks are going to ask that question, where's the tennis courts going? So.
Well, as part of the site selection committee, I have to admit, we were operating in somewhat of a vacuum. There is and has not been a holistic township approach to this whole issue. Maybe if the Morgan property is deemed by the township to be a more appropriate use of that property, even though it might be more expensive, we ought to look at that option. It's got to be a holistic, township-wide approach. We were operating in a silo, in a vacuum, and that's what we were pretty much tasked to do, and that's what we did. And I'm not saying what we did was correct, but that's what we did.
I love the Lehigh Valley reference there with township. The question I have for the site selection committee, you might know the answer to this, if I may. How much land was determined that you need if you were to do an off-site project? An acre? 5 acres? Depended upon the actual site?
Well, it kind of depended on parking.
The reason I'm asking is because there's a piece of property on 12 Robinson Road. It's an old farmhouse there. Really, there's not much that can be done with it. It's been deemed inoccupable. Can't live in it.
Uninhabitable.
Like Bonnie Rubble over here. But that piece of property is on the market and has been on the market for a long time for about $300,000. If that's something that we felt as a township that we would be able to put a library on, right in the center of town, walking distance to the common, that might be a beautiful location for it. And one of the reasons it was talked about being put over here is because people are used to it being on this site. You can't see it from the road if it's over there. You definitely can see it from the road if it's over at Robinson Road. So I think there may be other sites. I don't know that there are, Sam. I'm just kind of spitballing.
How many acres is that?
I think it's about 1.5 acres. I'm not certain, Steve. I'm just throwing it out there as it's relatively short money.
But if it's $1 million to be able to use the tennis court site, then are we not talking about $1 million as a ballpark of, acquiring some other site?
Couple things, right, and then they were talking about $1 million maybe for the driveway to go into the Morgan property, but maybe the Morgan property could have playing fields also out there or something. But the other thing, it might be nice to have a library in the common, but having it here, older people from COA can come over after lunch. The kids walk up from the school. There's not a lot to do in this town. The kids from Russell Street and the middle school walk up on the path. They feel safe doing that. They hang out at the library after school. They use the computers. They visit with their friends. And I think that's huge. It gives them some amount of, independence, and it gives them, they do their, school projects up here and stuff like that. If we move up to the common,
I think you'll still get the kids. And I'd encourage, I think that'd be an awesome thing for the kids, because then you're bringing kids to the common, it's gonna revitalize the common potentially, and there may be some retail activity that could happen as a result of that. The seniors, I would.
Need a sewer for that.
All right, all the way, all the way.
Here we go again.
As an option,
Deep pocket.
so going back to what Mr. Cole said about the amount of area that you measured out back, if we were to build 3 stories in the amount of space you have there, I'd like to know how many square feet that would add on the back of the building right there. Would that,
5,000, I think.
that would include all 3?
So you go up to about
Correct.
22.
So you've got the 2,200 square feet then?
Actually, I think the architect's
Rendering?
design accommodated the library on the first 2 floors, and then the 3rd floor was going to be
Meeting space.
vacant. Is that right?
Right, the tear down and build new was 2 floors.
I think you're right, Steve. I think I think the addition, the library would end up giving up the 3rd floor.
Right.
The problem is that the existing structure doesn't meet the modern ceiling requirements, or
Ceiling height.
the ceiling height. Everything is short compared to what you really want it to be, so then there's all these, the addition would not be 3 floors. It would be 2 floors with some walkway type sloping.
Can you put a roof deck up on top?
I don't know what they're doing, but.
Love this, it's coming together.
But that, Madam Chair, just to talk a little bit more about what Mark was saying, is that leads to chapter 34, 780 CMR, which is existing buildings. And with an existing building, you don't have to bring it up to current code. Whatever you build new onto it, you may have to meet it, but you don't have to bring the existing structure up to code. You can make whatever renovations you want, and whatever structure exists may remain.
Okay, good to know.
And I have one request, that whatever cost estimates are done in the future, that a line item be carried for replacement of the tennis courts or other sites, so that we know what the total cost is.
Totally agree.
Not just the
Yes.
cost of doing this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got quite a long list of to-dos. I guess the question that I have for myself, and Steve, I think you said it perfectly, this committee itself, good, bad, or indifferent, felt like it achieved its objective. So do we task the committee with getting back together again to fill in these gaps, or what's the best way to go forward here?
A lot of it's information gathering, right? I mean, things that exist, so shouldn't we just kind of get it and, work
Sign the
collectively on it?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, I would, if they want to meet again and review some of that stuff, fine. Eventually, it's going to come back to this board, the trustees,
FinCom,
whoever else.
Park and Rec, School Committee, PMBC.
I just think letting as many eyes see it as possible, all the information at this point of the game, is not a bad idea.
Yeah. Okay, so next action, fact-finding, data gathering, that kind of stuff, and then come back together across library trustees, FinCom, PMBC, Selectmen, School Committee, Park and Rec, who am I missing? And discuss what we found?
The PMBC, did you say PMBC?
PMBC.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Can I ask a question? On the relocating of the tennis courts, who's involved? I'm
Certainly the schools, and I would say Park and Rec as well, as the manager of the tennis courts.
So who's forming that committee? Are you in? I mean, as a library trustee or as the site selection committee, all I can do is tap on doors and ask people to show up.
So,
Right.
I can't answer that question for you, Mark. If you're asking for my opinion, I would think that the library trustees, or whoever's bringing forth the project, because they're taking away the tennis courts, it should be the project that relocates the tennis courts. So if you're looking for us to appoint a committee to relocate the tennis courts, it's my opinion that it wouldn't be us, it would be whoever's building the project.
I'm not sure that you need to do the committees per another committee. I think frankly, you've got committees that are, it may be a series of joint meetings, school committee, park and rec, library trustees, PMBC. and don't leave out us and FinCom.
But I think you're right, yeah, the site selection committee have to engage those committees that were just discussed, you know. Hey, get us on your agenda for the school committee, let's talk about this, how do you wanna move forward with it? Park and Rec, also obviously, and PMBC, so.
But we can also use some guidance from the township
Yeah.
as far as some kind of a holistic approach, you know? And who from the township would that be?
I think it's the site selection committee reaching out to everybody saying, you know, we need to engage.
They had a specific charge under the grant application, right? I mean, so that was, you know, we gave them additional, authority, that's one thing, but that's not, that's not currently how they're constituted. So I say under Madam Chair and Mr. Chair's leadership, the two of those folks could handle the logistics. I'm pointing to Mark.
Okay.
I was waiting to get my sign.
We're gonna get that later.
All right, so why don't we do this then? So Mark,
You
why
are
don't
Mr. Chair.
why don't you and I and Sam obviously touch base kind of offline and put a little plan of attack together based on what we heard tonight? And I've jotted down, it's nothing pretty, but I know what we gotta do.
The model of the chairs meeting has proved successfully to help shepherd a number of projects through, and I think it would be an excellent starting point to have the chairs of each of those committees that we're talking about get together and strategize with key staff. I mean, we'll be there too to help, but we've had a number of joint projects with the planning board over many years, and it's been very helpful. FinCom too, and it's been very helpful to help map out where you're going with the chairs meeting, and then we'll have a roadmap. Because it's, our organization it's not shaped like this, it's a flat line, but in a good way, so.
I like that suggestion. Yeah.
Can I just ask the school committee something? The tennis courts, the high school has courts too, right?
Yep.
So there's courts there and there's courts here, and they play games on all of them?
They do. The boys play, right now, the way they do it is the boys play, because there's only 2 courts at each site. And to run a high school tennis match, you need 4 courts.
So there's 2 courts up here and 2 courts at the
down
high
there,
school?
yeah. So the boys play down at the high school and the girls can play up here. And 4 courts is what's necessary to have a tennis program. You need
I've
4
not
courts.
seen the ones at the high school. Is there room near there for more courts so that all the team would play
You'd have to
together?
look, I mean, there's parking lot right abutting it right
Yeah.
now. I don't know where the property line goes to the other side.
It's
of the
Indian
tennis
Hills,
courts.
Indian Hills parking lot's on the other side.
I
So,
just
I mean,
didn't know if it was
certainly-
easier to have the whole tennis team in the same place at the same time.
Well, it certainly is easier and would be desirable in some ways, because it is logistically, it's fun, the courts are fine and they support the play, but the logistics of, they drop the boys off and the girls stay on the bus and go up, like when a team comes in, and they go up the road,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little tricky, so they make
Yeah.
it work, and as always, it's very rare do you get your ideal solutions, so you make the best of what you have, but that's where we're at right now.
Okay, one last point.
Real quick, I think you're putting the cart before the horse. Before a site committee is formed to find a place for new tennis courts, shouldn't the school committee take a vote and decide whether or not, in fact, they would even entertain the idea of giving up the tennis courts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're saying is we need to do a little bit more homework and get the different heads of the boards together before we even, on the whole thing, before we even head down that specific path, so yeah.
We'll be preparing a comprehensive recommendation of all of, to clean up whatever the ancient votes were that weren't taken. But
Before budget meeting.
Can I ask you a question, because I'm just not clear on this? We ruled out the Morgan property because of the extra cost from our perspective, right? We were trying to be fiscally responsible, saying that the road was going to make it outrageously expensive for the library, right? But the site selection committee, and I don't know, can't really make the determination that the town wants to develop that facility and put playing fields or whatever behind it, so maybe it's worth it or not. Who what organization or group would decide that?
The town.
Well, the
The town,
town,
but
the problem is the libraries have to make a recommendation where we're going, right?
Right, the process though, because it's sort of like we're an official, my take is that we're in an official timeout on the process we thought we were going. We're going to regroup, we're going to have the chairs of all of the affected committees, plus staff, just meet and talk through what the next steps are. And as we discussed tonight, if it's $1 million to relocate the tennis courts and we can't figure out where we're going to put them, and it was $1 million that ruled out the Morgan property, maybe that's enough to rule it back in or to rule some other site back in, that there are a menu of options that we could look at, but it's not fair to you to look at that in a vacuum, nor is it fair to everyone else who's going to be weighing in.
Well, the other problem is we keep throwing out $1 million for this and $1 million for that, but no one's actually done the homework to figure out that number, and I don't know who can do the homework to figure out that number, because it costs money, right? We don't have enough.
That would be you.
We don't have enough money to go after all of the sites, so we have to go more concentrated. We can't go to say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So they have to be ruled out down to a reasonable number before we can say where to go.
Even to say that there's still a right way to reach the answer, and if the right way to reach the answer is to recognize that we need more information, more quality information than we're currently set up to get, to rule in or rule out options, then we have to recognize that going and getting that additional information, whether there's funds available that can be tapped for, whether from private fundraising or future town meeting appropriations or something, because if we're recognizing that there are questions that have to be answered, and that those answers have a meaningful input on what ultimately the decision will be made. That there is a right, if you need a new library, then there is a right decision to be made based on information that we don't yet have. And we're in it together to figure out where that is. But it might be a different timetable. Ultimately, it may be a different timetable than what you were planning on, depending upon how much it takes to get those answers.
So I would suggest that before the architect go ahead with his independent cost estimate, that we figure out exactly what we want him to estimate.
Yep.
And have like a scope of work for him and that we all agree to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's no point in having him do an estimate based on, I don't know what it would be based on.
Yep. Another one. Okay.
Let the chairs meet and gather
Yep.
some information, and then we can all
Make a plan.
chew it over again.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. All right, that brings us to the final item, A, minutes approval. Oh, we don't have PJ.
It's me. Hold on, 9/6. So you gotta get up to, there's a problem with this.
Oh, man.
Show me where the wetlands is.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
9/2, paragraph 6.
Gotta build a 700-foot, 2-lane highway.
Any issues with the minutes? I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the minutes for Monday, April 25th, 2016.
My name is spelled correctly. I'm missing an S in my name, Jen, if we could make that, sorry, with that amendment.
Okay.
Page 3, word number 1.
Joe.
Sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
So with, no,
I
stay.
asked.
Great point.
It's my bad. Can we run ready?
Okay, with that amendment, I would look to make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, April 25th, 2016.
Second. You can't take out the chairman now. I would look.
You second, Jeff? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
That is an abstention, Jennifer? Big A.
All right, now on to our final item 8B, which is review and release executive session minutes regarding Cooper Farm. We may or may not go into executive session, right, Keith? So if there's no questions.
Yeah, if the board wants to review the draft minutes before you release them, then we should go into executive session. If you're fine with the minutes as presented, then you could just vote in public, but
We got an
The
okay and
board's choice.
abstention. Okay, Joe, you okay? We seem to
they've been
be,
reviewed by town council.
okay, good.
I have no issues with it.
Me either. So are we good to make the first?
You could.
You ready?
Yeah, number three.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to release the executive session minutes of, minutes on 1/11/2016, 2/11/2016, 3/7/2016, 3/14/2016, 3/21/2016, 4/11/2016, and 4/21/2016.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
So with that being said, now we have a request for open meeting law violation. I saw.
Open meeting law violation that was filed today for
Yeah.
the last two sets of minutes, because those are the only that fall within the 30-day window that.
Okay.
But you will, the board can task town council or someone else to respond. Typically, we do town council to respond. But you have to vote it, and I think it's probably close enough to being on the agenda tonight where you could vote to direct town council to respond unless that's going to cause another open meeting law violation.
Yeah.
I think you're okay.
I think we're okay, too. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to have town council review the recently received open meeting law violation and respond to said violation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's a big A.
Do I get to ask who did that?
That's a matter of record, isn't
It's a
it?
matter of record.
Oh, is it?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be Jane Crisfield.
No idea.
We had the reason why we're releasing the minutes tonight, in the first place, is that we had a public records request for those minutes, and the board, since they're executive session minutes, the board has 30 days to review them and release them. So we've done that much. But
Once the matter's been,
once the matter's been concluded, if we had not reached an agreement, then the matter would not be concluded, so the minutes are not subject to release. But since we reached an agreement, which we've signed, and that's so that matter is done, the minutes are to be released, so that's what we're doing.
Okay, very good. I think we're good.
One more. Maybe I missed it. There was a spot on the agenda for the abutters lot. Is that?
You did miss it.
Yeah.
I did miss it.
Yes.
I thought it was for 8:15.
Yeah, it was.
It was. We got ahead of the agenda.
Oh, so what happened?
you're in trouble.
We're asking.
Well, that's the only.
We're going to proceed with the two lots that were in the town meeting vote.
Okay.
So that will direct the treasurer to go through the process of making those available pursuant to the tax title of butter lot sales program.
Yeah, he's the only abutter. So what about the one to the right of that, on the end of Narcissus, that was granted prior to which no one bought?
That's not subject to that lot sales program. It wasn't on the town meeting vote, and the board has not taken any action
haven't considered that yet.
to have it be, to take any action on it.
May I talk about that for a second?
Is it-
Well,
I think we have to agenda it.
Yeah, we should agendarize it and come back for that specific. Tonight, all we had was the
Review of the town meeting vote.
the view of
I'm
the town
sorry?
meeting vote. We just made action on the town meeting
Yeah,
vote. We haven't
but-
agenda, we haven't talked about it. We're not there yet.
Okay. may I discuss anything on it and you just listen or not?
Discuss it
Doesn't
at this
matter?
point, yeah, no, not yet, I mean,
Yeah, I think,
you can make the request through, Mr. Bergman to have it agendaized,
Okay.
and we'll get it on the agenda. And you come back.
I know you know how to
Then you
do
can come back
that.
and talk.
I'm sorry?
I know you know how to do that.
Yes, sir, I do.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
so moving second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Glazer.
Thank you, appreciate that. Is it time for me to throw the switch?